So let's take a look at the first example. When you have two pieces or two items multiplied together, the rule is to add the exponents. So in this situation right here, the rule for your exponents is to add them. So I'm going to look at my x's, x to the fifth and x to the fourth. I'm going to add 5 plus 4 to get 9. So I know my answer has to be F or G. Then I'm going to take y to the third times y to the third and add those together and get 3 plus 3, which is 6. So I know my answer is F. Just for practice sake, 2 plus 6 would have given me that 8 as well. All right, let's take a look at the next one. In this example right here, and here's a rule that's very important for you to know. The rules apply to exponents only. The numbers you're going to do like you would have done your whole life. If you see 3 times 7, you need to do what you've always done when you see the numbers 3 times 7 and multiply those numbers to get 21. So my answer is J or K. Remember, the rules apply to the exponents only. And we just said above that in this particular case, you're going to add the exponents. So 5 plus 9 is 14, and my answer is J. It's really important that you know these rules because you can see how they're trying to trick you a little bit, making you want to say 5 times 9 is 45. But that's not what we do. We add the exponents in this case. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Again, the numbers you're going to do like you would have done your whole life. If you saw 4 times 3, you know the answer is 12. It's the exponents that your rules apply to. And in this case, that a is understood to be a to the first power. So a to the first power times a to the fourth power is a to the fifth power. And b to the second power times b to the third power is also b to the fifth power because we're adding those exponents, and our answer is E. Okay, let's take a look at example 4. And if you'd like to, try this one real quickly. Okay, I hope you said 5 times 3 is 15 like you would have said your whole life, but I hope you knew the rule applied to the exponents, and I hope you added p to the 6th and p to the 2nd to get p to the 8th. So your answer is J. Okay, let's take a look at number 3 up here. Let's let you try this one. So you're going to pause the video and try it and see how you do. Okay, once again, the numbers do like your whole life. 7 times 3 is 21. On your A's, and that actually got cut off a little bit, I apologize for that. That is an A to the 6th and an A to the 3rd, which is going to be A to the 9th. And then on your B's, that's a B to the 1st and a B to the 9th. So that's going to be 1 plus 9 is going to be B to the 10th. So my answer is D, 21, A to the 9th, B to the 10th. Okay, number 7 is a different type of way to ask it, but it's still the same rule. We know that the rule is telling us to add the exponent. So the question says, if I have A to the 3rd times A to the K, and it needs to equal A to the 9th, then what does K need to be? So what does that need to be so that I can say A to the 3rd times that gives me A to the 9th? Well, if they've got to add, I know that needs to be 6 because 3 and 6 give me A to the 9th. Okay, let's take a look at number 18. And we're starting to get into the point where we're going to be dividing the exponents. But on the top, we already know what that rule tells us to do. That tells us to add the exponents, A to the 6th, We'll just bring that a to the 6th over. And can you see that those are identical things? A to the 6th over a to the 6th just cancel and you get 1. It's just like if you have 3 over 3. The 3's cancel and that reduces to 1 as well. So my answer is G. Be careful not to put 0. They're kind of messing with you, making you think, oh, everything cancels, so nothing's left, and so nothing, 0. But that's not the case. It's just like here. This goes into itself once, 3 goes into itself once, and 1 over 1 is 1. All right, let's take a look at this one right here. Now we are getting into the division type of problems, okay? The numbers you're going to do like you do your whole life. If you saw negative 36 divided by 4, you would need to do what you've done your entire life, which is to divide. Negative 36 divided by 4 is negative 9. So I know it's C, D, or E. But what about the exponents? Well, the rules are different. This time you're going to subtract the exponents. When you are dividing, you subtract the exponents. I always tell my students, they're having a battle. Let those exponents battle. So if I looked at my x's, I've got 4 in the top team and 1 in the bottom team, because remember, that's understood 1 right there. So if they had a battle, I would subtract 4, take away 1 is 3, but doesn't the top team win? They had more in there, so that would be to the 3rd in the top. So my answer would have to be E, but for practice sake, let's let those Y's have a battle too. If you have 3 in the top and 1 in the bottom, and they have a battle, so I subtract and get Y squared, but the top team wins, so that's why it's in the top. Okay, let's take a look at this one. If you want to, pause the video and try for yourself and see how you do. All right, so on this one, we're going to do the numbers like we would have done our entire life. If you saw negative 18 divided by 3, you know that answer is negative 6. Okay, let's let those x's have a battle. So x to the 3rd in the top and x to the 1st in the bottom. So you subtract. The rule says when you're dividing like this that you want to subtract the exponents. So if I have 3 in the top and 1 in the bottom, subtract and get 2, and the top team wins. So it has to be F. Again, just for practice sake, 2 in the top, 1 in the bottom, subtract, and that leaves you with 1 in the top. Okay, this next example. They're asking the rule, but just kind of in a generic form here. What they're saying is this. They're saying if you have x to the a power divided, because they're dividing here, that's telling me I'm dividing, and I get x to the 3rd, what did I do with those a's and b's? Did I subtract them, add them, divide them, multiply, do something crazy square root kind of thing? So it's basically, what's the rule is what they're asking. Remember that when you divide, you subtract the exponents. So we're saying that we subtract those and we get 3 for the answer. They had a battle. All right, let's take a look at 43. And I wrote the problem over here a little bit larger so that we could see it. It's combining the first 2 types of rules that we've already done. So let's take a look and do our numbers first. I can take the numbers and divide, because remember, the numbers you do like you've done your entire life. 3 goes into itself once. 3 goes into 9 3 times. So I can already see as far as the numbers, there's a 3 over a 2, which means I have it down to A or B. Now I know on the ACT you're trying to find the right answer, but you realize if you get rid of all the wrong answers, that's also going to get you to the right answer. So let's look at the X's and see what happens with these. On the X's, 3 of them and 1 of them and 4 of them. So I have 3 and 1. That's like having 3 and 1, or x to the 4th in the top. And if I have x to the fourth in the top and x to the fourth in the bottom, those 4 in the top and the 4 in the bottom just completely cancel. There's no x's left whatsoever. So my answer has to be A, the one that doesn't have any x's left. All right, let's take a look at the next rule. This rule I call power to power because you have an exponent, but then that exponent is being raised to another power. So a power is being raised to a power. The rule here is that you multiply the exponents. It's as simple as saying 10 times 4 is 40. So the answer is G, x to the 40th power. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Again, the rule says that I'm going to take power to power, and I'm going to multiply those exponents. So 5 times 12 is F, x to the 60th. Now you can see they're trying to trick you there. It's not that. It's x to the power of 60. All right, try this number 15 on your own. Okay, the rule said power to power, I'm going to multiply. And if you multiply, you're going to get 6 times 24 is 144. All right, this number 39. I know it looks a little bit intimidating, but don't let it intimidate you. Still do what you know to do. In this case right here, I have a power to a power, so I'm supposed to multiply the exponents. So 4 times 5 fourths, and in your mind, maybe you can see that 4 in the top and that 4 in the bottom can cancel. But if not, you can certainly just go to your calculator and say 4 times 5 fourths as a fraction, and you'll see that you get x to the 5th. All right, do the same thing here, a power to a power. 5 times 2/5, I'm going to multiply those numbers and get x to the 2nd. Maybe you can see the 5's canceling and giving you 2, or maybe you need to come over here to your calculator and multiply and see. Once I have multiplied the power to power, now I'm at a situation like we started at the first of the video. Now we're going to add those exponents. X to the 5th times x to the 7th tells me to add and get D. Okay, number 30. I've taken the problem and rewritten it over here so that you can see it a little bit better. And so on this right here, we're going to distribute. Every single person inside that parentheses gets raised to the 3rd power. So 3 gets raised to the 3rd power. X squared gets raised to the 3rd power. Now remember me telling you earlier that it's really important to remember that the numbers you're going to do like you would have done your entire life. If you saw 3 to the 3rd power, you know that that's 3 times 3 times 3. Or you could just go to your calculator and type in 3 to the 3rd power, and you get 27. Well, my answer has to be K because that's the only 27 there is. But just to practice in case there was more than 127, here power to power tells me to multiply those exponents, and 2 times 3 would give me 6. All right, let's take a look at the next one. And I've rewritten the problem over here a little bit larger, and if you'd like to, pause your video and practice on your own and then come back and check with me. All right, once again, this is going to distribute to each person in the parentheses. So 2 to the 6th power, in your mind or on your calculator, that's telling me to take 2 and multiply itself 6 times and get 64, x to the 6th, and then you have 10y squared. Now, again, the numbers you're going to do like your entire life. If you were told to multiply 64 times 10, you would get 640. the x to the 6th and the y to the 7th just kind of come along. All right, the last rule that we're going to talk about today is the rule for negative exponents. So when you have negative exponents, here is your rule. You are going to move them. What we mean by that is this. If it's in the top or the numerator, you're going to send it to the bottom or to the denominator. And if it's in the denominator or in the bottom there, you're going to move it to the top or the numerator. So in this situation right here, that's understood a to the negative 2nd over 1. So this is in the top, so you're going to move it to the bottom or to the denominator and get e. Number 9. I can see the first thing is that I have a power to a power to power. So I'm going to multiply those exponents to begin. And I'm going to have y, negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Now be careful, this is not my answer. I know clearly that a negative times a positive is not a positive, so don't get tricked there. This is in the numerator, so you're going to send it to the denominator and get f. All right, last one. On this one right here, a couple different ways you could go with this. I think one of the things that I might see is that this 7 to the negative 1st is going to have to get moved to the denominator. So I know my answer is either A or B. The next thing you might do is you might see that that's 5 squared, which is 25, 5 times 5. So then I know my answer has to be B. It's possible you might have also gone the route with that right there, that x to the negative 2nd in the top, having to go to the denominator to also get B. If you'd like more help and practice with ACT math prep content, be sure to check out the other videos on my channel. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button if you found this video helpful, and even share with a friend. See you later.